Interesting and a bit curious story this morning about this temple tax and the throwing the line in. So, the question is so many times, who is Jesus? Jesus is the Son of the Father. Jesus is one with the Father. And the temple is Jesus' house. It's his house. He doesn't have to pay taxes to visit his own house. And that's the point. And he's saying this in a way that I'm sure Peter's scratching his head, and then he catches the fish. And you can just, again, it's all sinking in. But who is Jesus? And he pays the temple tax out of respect, not out of necessity. Somebody might have accused him of not paying the temple tax, not being a good Jew, not being a good citizen of Israel. So he says, so as to not to offend them, I'll pay it. But I'm not a foreigner. Essentially, it's my house. And again, how our Lord claims his divinity over and over again, sometimes in veiled ways. And that we see that this morning. We also have in the gospel today, and if you could put it in your brain, we had a couple of weeks ago, Sundays ago, we had the Transfiguration, right? And in chapter 16, this is from chapter 17, in chapter 16 we had Jesus predicting his passion, then going up on the Mount of Transfiguration, coming back down the Mount of Transfiguration, healing somebody, and now another prediction of the passion. As Jesus and his disciples were gathering in Galilee, he said, the Son of Man is to be handed over to men, and they will kill him, and he will be raised on the third day. And they were overwhelmed with grief. And then we have the story of the temple tax and Jesus' divinity. And something else, the temple, we cannot overemphasize the significance of the temple to the Jewish identity. But Jesus is going to replace the temple. And what is he going to replace the temple with? Himself. You know that there are people, even Christians, who are raising money to build a new temple in Jerusalem. I hate to say it's cuckoo, but it is cuckoo. That Jesus is the temple. As Christians, we have to recognize that. There's no need for another temple. We have the eternal temple, not made with human hands, still with us in our Lord Jesus, particularly in the Holy Eucharist. Now, the proclamation of our Christian faith is not always well received. Remember, Jesus was a Jew, and in a very real way, not that we're Jews in the same way Jesus was, but Christianity is a continuation of Judaism. It's a continuation of that faith. And so Jesus is the temple, and the temple has been replaced with the new temple. And I have to at least momentarily mention St. Maximilian Kolbe, a modern saint, right? Less than 100 years ago, killed in the concentration camp, gave his life for another who was going to be executed. And it's a beautiful story. I don't have time to tell the whole story this morning, except to say this, that the man, he took somebody else's place as a punishment and as an execution. And the man whose place he took was present when he was canonized, which is kind of a beautiful thing, And so St. Maximilian Kolbe, beautiful life of faith, beautiful life of courage, beautiful life of embracing the cross and laying down his life out of love for his neighbor. And we remember his sacrifice. The Old Testament reading today was pointing out how the nation of Israel was a chosen race. You're a chosen race. Not by ethnicity, but by faith. We have the temple, not a building made with human hands, but Jesus himself.